dominant defensive player.
He just goes to work, hard hat on, with the steel-toe boots.
I'm in his hands, 11¼ inches wide. These mitts are absolutely the biggest things you've ever seen.
Kawhi for the win! Oh, what a roll! Kawhi, clutch, and a turnover. Leonard, Raptors lead it. Leonard, how about that?
You look at the numbers, and the guy who most likely is going to end up winning, and there are a lot of choices, the most improved player this year in the NBA, Pascal Siakam, he has arrived. He was the closer in game number 3, but look, Kawhi's been that all season. They've got a number of different options. So what kind of options does Orlando have to break back into this series and get things even? With more from down in Disney, here is Jared Greenberg.
We're all familiar with the old adage, defense wins championships. And truly, it was on the backs of their defense that the Magic even were able to make the postseason. However, after 2 lackluster offensive performances against the Raptors, they know they need to start outscoring Toronto.
At some point, you're going to have to put the ball in the basket, which is the point of playing the game of basketball. And as much as defense is important and something that you can rely on every night, there comes a point where, if you don't score, you're going to struggle. Your defense can only take you so far. The way we play, it can be anybody, coming big for us at any moment. The way our offense is set, I think Coach Cliff understood that we don't really have the big superstars of this league, and we have to just, figure it out as a team.
Over the first 2 games of this series, Orlando's leading scorer, Nikola Vucevic, was held in check. And then in Game 3, 22 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. One may say, Shaq-like numbers.
So it's humbling to be compared to one of the greatest players and one of the best centers to ever play the game. Having my name mentioned alongside his means a lot. And obviously he had a part of his career was here with the Magic, and he had a huge impact here.
Is this the most exciting time in your career?
For sure. This year, we finally put it all together. We won. We ended up having a positive record for the first time in 7 years, and especially because nobody thought we were going to do it. So for us to do it was amazing. And then I made the All-Star, so that was also a big goal of mine, a dream of mine, and so it all came together.
You look at this series and where we're at, and I think everybody knew, obviously, the favorites were going to be the Raps in this series, but we talk about Kawhi so often in the change. Let's talk about Pascal Siakam. Grant, 30 points in the last game. Give Dwayne Casey a lot of credit because really the work with him last year, giving him those minutes, set him up for here. But has he arrived to be, forget about just most improved, but now a guy who we could see become an all-star caliber player?
I totally agree with that because he's a kid that has no ceilings and his potential is just amazing. And some people exercise the right to make trades in the offseason, and some people wait for the development of guys, and he's a guy that developed on the fly. And you had to initially make a trade for with C.J. Miles at the trade deadline because of his development and what he's been capable of doing, thinking that he will play in the foreseeable future became now. And he's playing at an amazing clip, and he's just playing amazingly well. So when Kawhi Leonard doesn't have those type of games, he's able to step up in a major way.
Smitty, how does it change them moving forward? Not to put them past Orlando yet, but they're looking for, you didn't go get Kawhi, Messiah, in this spot for 1 year without the big goal. To have Siakam now raise to that number 2 scorer level, how does that help their goal and getting there the next few
weeks? I think it's been great because, on paper it should be Kyle Lowry. In some games we all know Kyle Lowry doesn't bring it. But what I love about Pascal Siakam, he hasn't forgot about the defensive end. He's averaging 10 rebounds, also scoring 24 points. But I'm impressed because he's handling the basketball more for me. He only has 1 turnover in this series. And that's the one thing I've always saw him as a slasher. But now he's getting post up. They're isolating him. And he's not turning it over. He's not taking bad shots. So he's starting to come on as that second go-to guy for me on the offensive end. And we know what he does defensively.
Coach, as you watch Orlando, you sit there from the outside. What if you're Steve Clifford, are you telling your guys that you like despite where you sit now in this series that tells you, hey, look, we can get things back even?
Well, I think when you look at their defense, it starts there. But in Game 3, Vucevic got going. And then they started making threes. And just like we're talking about Siakam, I think the same thing can be said of Isaac.
Yeah.
A similar player. And Siakam got onto the floor with his defense at the beginning of his career, and he's grown each year. And he's shooting the corner 3. He's putting it on the floor. And I love the way he plays in the post. He works on angles, 45-degree angles. He'll take you to the middle of the floor, spin back, both blocks. And I think you're starting to see Isaac defensively. He's a huge factor for Orlando. Orlando is playing great basketball. They have been playing great basketball since the All-Star break.
They got to hit threes. Got to hit some threes. Fournier, 1 of 8 in the last game for 3. They got to hit some threes as well. Indiana's going to need some things to go right. You wonder whether or not they'll be thinking all offseason about Game 2, where their own unforced errors, if you will, kept them from being even coming home. Now they try and just even keep going with a win. We got more coming up on Game Time. For Russell Westbrook, it was an entertaining game in the last one of this series that saw Oklahoma City get back down to 2-1, including rocking babies and bumping off Dame and doing the same. Now, Dame did give him 25 in the third quarter, but at the end of the fourth, it was this big shot that helped put things to rest, and one big dunk from Paul George that helped more conversation come. That in a second. In the meantime, from a head-to-head standpoint, we could tell there is maybe mutual respect from a standpoint of what they do on the floor, but not a general liking of each other, which makes it fun for all of us to actually see rivalries here in 2019. With more on that and a preview on what's coming up in game number 4, here's Stephanie Ray.
It's well known in the playoffs that the team that makes the best adjustments generally has the most success. Paul George on Saturday admitted that he was not taking advantage of what the defense was giving him. He said he was doing too much. He says that he can make it easier on himself. Well, George and the Thunder have no intentions of making it easier for the Blazers.
They're not perfect. They're subject to turn the ball over sometimes. We just got to make it as tough as possible as we can. They're going to make shots, as you saw Dame get hot in the third. They're going to be special, but we got to try to speed them up, force them into what we want them to do, and live with the results.
But make no mistake, it's not only the adjustments we have our eyes on, but also the battle of the point guards.
It's just like two people fighting out there, and obviously I think the Dame is doing a really good job just keeping his calmness, because that's Russell's game. He's gonna yell, he's gonna scream, he's gonna get under your skin. But I think Dame is doing an amazing job, Dame and CJ keeping their coolness and calmness.
Yeah, he's not gonna get under my skin. People don't get under my skin because I'm just not. It's just not gonna happen. I wasn't raised that way. I grew up around a lot of stuff that could have got under my skin more than trash talk or a basketball game. So it's just not gonna happen.
It's hard not to love. Hey, look, and I know you love competition and competing and all that. You should have seen the pep talk I got in private during the break. I'm not going to talk about it. I survived, though. We're good. But I love that back and forth. Seem to kind of elevate both players. How about the one-on-one that you've seen here between Russ and Dame in this series?
Yeah, I think, as fans, when you're watching it, you can't ask for anything better. We all love to see great competition. You got two great talents. You have two great teams. And what's happened, I think, in this series, Portland's very good at home, and so OKC is very good at home. And so it's changed. Now, the role players have to play well. OKC's bench has to step up. But that matchup, and they got to be careful not to allow it to become too much one-on-one. But the thing about Russ is he plays off his emotion. You never want to take that away from him. That's what makes him so special. And Dame, he doesn't get rattled. So they're both great in their own way, and they're both a little different. Russ is going to attack you more in his size. He's tough to stop. And Dame, he sets up everything with his shot. His shot, if you give him any airspace, it's good. And he'll shoot it from 4 feet beyond the three. You got to be ready at all times.
Smitty, second half was quiet for CJ in the last game. They're going to win on the road. How much does it come down to, okay, this questions of not having a third guy is going to continue, but we got to have the two guys, at least, if we're going to win a game here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and the reason why I love CJ is not just because of scoring. He's a guy that can break you down and get his feet in the paint. They don't do it too much on the post-up, but I would love to see CJ, when he's going offensively, yes, to keep scoring. But I just think his ability to be able to break you down and get in the paint, to get some other guys easy shots. Dame is doing that better. Both of those guys, because they have the ball so much, make sure I'm getting you an open shot. Those two guys can get their shot when they want to, and I think CJ, when he comes in and he's with Seth Curry, get Seth some open shots, because both those guys can get to create their own shots at any time. You need your teammates at times. They're not traditional point guards, but I think if both those guys can do that a little bit more, and defensively. I mean, they held them to 39% OKC, went up to 40, but it was 48% shooting for OKC last game, and I know they're at home. Some kind of way Portland has to get back to defensively and making this a slower pace game.
And Seth had one attempt from three and didn't make. You got to give him more opportunities. Let's talk about Paul George, because we know he's not the same version. He said, Caron, hey, look, I'm feeling better. I'll be fine. I'll shoot better. But I know you like the other things you see him doing in terms of ways he can impact the game, including getting to the basket a little more if the shot's not going to be there from three.
That's why he's a huge asset to this ball club, because not only from scoring standpoint, but defensively, he's able to switch out on Dame and CJ McCollum and take guys out like that out of the game and still utilize his versatility and be a facilitator on the offensive end of the floor. You see him in position where he's able to get his feet in the paint, be aggressive, put the pressure on the defense of the Portland Trail Blazers and get them in foul troubles, get them in the bonus early. But he's also able to offset a lot of the things that they have going from an offensive standpoint, because if he's out there, whether he's in a chair, whether he's half injured or whatever, you have to respect the presence of Paul George.
And the presence of the supporting cast, we know it's easier for the others at home, but Jeremy Grant, Schroeder, others, their best game of the series in Game 3. You know who else had that? Kevin Durant had his. In case you weren't sure, he's Kevin Durant. Not that Pat Bev didn't know that. He also knew how tall he was. When we come back, we'll get a chance to have Krista Ledlow join us, get her thoughts and takes from out at Staples. And how the Clips can get back in this thing. And we'll talk about the dominance from KD as Golden State looks to take a commanding lead in this series. The hair this time, looking back normal. We got plenty of hair on this side as we bring in Coach Thibodeau, who's going to be with us the next couple of days, which I'm excited about. Coach, welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is the good-looking side of this.
Yeah, right.
If you haven't noticed. Just look at Smitty. He didn't want to say anything. We got a lot to get to, including a number of games to talk about later in the afternoon. Coming up, the Warriors, they're looking to take a stranglehold of their series. But we begin by talking about what's gone on in Indiana. And that Game 3 was another one to the Celtics. Indiana's had some opportunities, especially in Game 2, but they're now one game away from elimination. We bring in Rebecca Harlow, be part of the coverage on TNT. Rebecca, I said in the open, we've activated playoff Kyrie. It's made a big difference. I know he said the regular season didn't mean much. What are we seeing from this version, and how much of a difference has it made through 3 games?
Yeah, well, Kyrie has just been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, when you watched him in Game 3, you put a 5 on him, he shoots over the top. He's just been absolutely incredible. He's just been so clutch. But I think one of the most important things that we're seeing from Kyrie in this series is how much he's involving his teammates. He's averaging 8 assists a game. And when he was getting trapped the other night in the fourth quarter, he's passing the ball. Al Horford is hitting big shots, so everyone is stepping up and he's making everyone around him better. And I think that when you think about all of the drama and the ups and the downs that this team went through during the regular season, that's all out the window because this Celtics team is playing so unselfishly, and really that starts with Kyrie.
Rebecca, Caron Bulter here. How important is it for the Celtics to close out the series tonight?
Well, you know what? I think they would love to close out the series, but here's the thing. I was talking to Brad Stevens and I asked him, how important is it? Just the question that you're asking me, because it would give these guys more rest and a chance to get ready for the second round. And Brad Stevens said, it's going to be really hard to do. In fact, we've never done it with me as a head coach here. So I went and looked at the numbers. He's coached 50 playoff games and he's never had a sweep. And one of the things that he said that's going to be really difficult today is that when you take a look at Nate McMillan, he's been very good at making adjustments. I mean, in Game 1, it was smart when he put Wesley Matthews on Kyrie Irving. In Game 2, he picked up the pace. That helps them a lot. And then overall, their switching has been fantastic. So the Celtics have had to work really hard for the points that they've gotten. So they understand that today there's a lot of pride on the line for the Pacers, and they're not going to go down easy.
Rebecca, the question for me, as you talked about adjustment, is there any thought process of getting Tyreke Evans more time? He's only averaging 19 minutes, but he's been fantastic, scoring downhill, and he's shooting a 3 at about 61%. Has Nate addressed maybe playing Tyreke a little bit more?
Well, yeah, Steve, he's been so tough. And in the minutes that he's been on the floor, he's been playing so hard. And he was asked that question yesterday, and he said that Tyreke actually, called to come out, that he would have gone with him longer in game 3, but he's just leaving it all on the floor. He's just been so clutch. I mean, obviously they've been struggling to find buckets, and when they've needed some big ones, they've gotten them from him, but he could only give what he can give. I think overall for this Pacers team, we're going to have to see 5, 6, 7 guys in double figures if they're going to get that done. And in the first couple of games, they weren't able to do that. In game 3, they have done that. So I think you're just going to need to see more of that from everybody today.
Rebecca, Tom Thibodeau here. My question for you is, Nate has done a great job all year since the injury to Victor in selling his team on the belief that they could win by playing as a team. What is he selling them in this situation when your back is against the wall, you're down 3-0? How do you approach this game?
Well, Tom, I actually think you'll appreciate this because he's giving his guys some tough love. He's expecting a lot from them today. He's saying, do you believe? Do you think you can get this done? Are you going to play with pride? And that's exactly what you would expect Nate McMillan to do, to challenge his team. But then overall, what he's also saying is that his team hasn't played their best basketball yet. So he's telling them, if you can put together that 48-minute game, that there's no reason why they can't win. And so it's all come down to the fact that in every single game here, they've just had one bad quarter where it's been 8 points and then 12 points and then 12 points. And they need to get over that hump. And what Nate is telling me in terms of how they're going to get that done is making sure that they stay smart about their shot selection, that there's a lot of times where they're moving that ball around, they work for a great shot, they score, but then on the next possession when they do the same thing and they miss, that they've been hanging their heads a little bit. So he's telling them that they've got to stay patient, but he's definitely seeing if they're going to come out today and show up and get this win, guys.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Glad it's warmer inside that building than it's been outside last couple of days in Indiana. We'll see whether or not the crowd has something to cheer about late in the fourth quarter. Thanks, Rebecca. Looking forward to the broadcast. Appreciate it. There's Rebecca Harlow joining us. So let's start here, Coach, because forgetting aside, we could do a whole show on, look, Tyreek Evans at 15 in the first half. I don't know about 19 minutes, and that's all he can give. Who knows with that? I know this. Brad said Nate's great at making adjustments. He has. He's done a great job. But how do you adjust as a coach to not having as much talent, especially without Vic, who you don't have and he's your best player? I mean, how do you get better without more pieces?
Well, I think you just hit on that. And if you went back to the end of the regular season, those games that they had against Boston were very hard fought. And then what happened at the end, Kyrie took the game over. Same thing, they have also, Boston has Tatum. So when you look at how close these games are, I think down the stretch, that's where they've missed Vic the most. That's his time. So someone has to step up in those situations. But the Pacers have played great defense all season long. They've played extremely hard as a team. Those things could be the same. Your defense, how you share the ball, playing for each other. And they're going to have to play a great game. They're going to have to play a 48-minute game. They can't have a 12-point quarter. They have to be consistent throughout.
Smitty, and I don't want to date you. We talk about you playing with Dad all the time. But I want to talk about the one who used to be a little boy in Sabonis, because when you think about guys who can give more than they're giving with more opportunities, I know in the flow he's getting points, but this is a guy who you look at these 3 games and you wonder, is he getting enough touches and opportunities, Sabonis offense?
Well, just kind of something what Coach hit on, and Caron knows this. We've been around. When you go into a game and they're more talented, you got to make the game grimy. You got to make it ugly. And I'm looking at the numbers. The numbers don't say everything, but minus 10 in rebounds for Miles Turner and Sabonis, you can't have that. And I know Al Horford and those guys, they do a great job of, boxing out. You got to win this game, the dirty game. Plus 10 on the board for the Celtics against the Pacers. And I'm putting that on Miles and Sabonis. Both you guys got to come out. Your scoring hasn't been there, but you can rebound and defend. And I think for me, as those guys, you got to make it grimy. You don't have a closer like Kyrie, but we got to win those hustle board points, those grimy, those in the paint. I think the Pacers should do a better job in that, Caron.
Caron, on the Celtics side of it, how much can we learn in 3 days that makes us, with 3 games, feel a little better about some of the roller coaster kind of a thing that we saw from the Celtics all year?
I think that the pecking order is falling together in vertical order. They relying on Kyrie to step up in a major way, and I think he's doing a remarkable job of being the ultimate closer. And you can tell, one of the things that we touched on is that they have that guy on the opposing side. And you look at Indiana, they have to do it by committee. So they have Miles Turner, Young, Collison, Evans, all those guys that have to come together collectively and try to close the game.
We've got a lot still to get to throughout the course of this day. We've got games all across the board. Here's the schedule. Celtics and Pacers get us started. We've got Golden State against the Clippers. Can Lou Will and company battle back? The Raptors and the Magic and OKC. We're rocking babies, but will it be Dame or will it be Russ who's got the last laugh? We've got more coming on the other side, including talking about what's gone up in TO and what's come down. A lot of points from not only Kawhi, but how about Siakam?